This happened when I was around 10. I live in a relatively small country, and it only took a couple hours' drive to get from my house to my aunt's in another county. This story starts off with me and my mom driving home from my aunt's. We're driving on a country road when this battered-looking minivan started driving in front of us at a roundabout. We were the only two cars on the road. There were gardening tools and a tarp in the back window. It was clear that the driver was either drunk, high, or a fucking idiot. They were repeatedly swerving in and out of their lane like they were a video game protagonist. It was a hot day, so both of our cars had the windows down. We could hear what sounded like a sermon blasting from their radio. We drove behind them for roughly 7 minutes with my mom muttering about the state of the country. The minivan abruptly stopped in the middle of the road, which roughly pissed off my mom. The driver then did an illegal U-turn, during which two things happened. I saw the driver's face. He was a skinny, middle-aged man with dirty yellow hair and a beard, and we both got a good look at each other's license plates. The driver turned into the opposite lane and drove past us, heading back into town, still driving erratically and almost hitting us. After he was gone, my mom pulled over and called the police to report him, giving them his license plate and a description of his appearance. The cop thanked us and promised to get right on it. When we were nearly home, my mom got a call from the guards where they told her they had arrested the man, who had warrants for drug dealing and domestic abuse. My mom was thanked, and we all joked about her being a hero over pizza that night. Cut to a few weeks later when school was starting up again. I had gone with my dad to the hardware store. While my dad was at the checkout, I was looking out at the parking lot when I saw the battered minivan driving out of the lot. I didn't see the driver, so I convinced myself that it was only a coincidence, although my dad noticed I seemed uneasy for the rest of the night. A few days later, my mom came home early from work, looking like she had just run a marathon. She gave me and my brothers tight hugs, and we were sent to bed far earlier than usual that night. I didn't learn about this next part until last year. The reason my mom was acting so weird is because her secretary had reported seeing a strange man inspecting the license plates of my mom's car. My mom asked what the man had looked like, and froze when she was given the description of the man we had reported. That weekend, my mom didn't want any of us kids leaving the house, but I was a stubborn little shit and all but demanded to be allowed out for a quick walk around the neighborhood. While I was out, and roughly 15 minutes away from my house, a vehicle drove past me. It was the minivan, and the same man was in the driver's seat giving me a friendly nod. As soon as he was out of sight, I ran back home and told my parents, who immediately bundled us all into my dad's car and drove to stay the night at Grandma's. I was put in the guest room but had zero chance of falling asleep, so I was wide awake for all the drama that happened that night. My parents called the cops and informed them about the man stalking us. A couple of hours later, a squad car pulled up outside and the officers told my parents everything. When they arrived to our house, they had discovered the front door had been forced open. Some of our nicest possessions had been smashed and were left in shards on the floor. But that's not the worst part. The worst part was where the police found the man. In the pantry, holding what a female officer described as the biggest damn knife I've ever seen. We spent the next few days at Grandma's, while my parents took care of all the legal business. The man was sentenced to life in a psychiatric hospital, and none of us have seen him since. I dread to think what might have happened had I not gone for a walk that day. When I was about 16 years old, I decided to get myself a job for the summer. This would be the very first job I'd ever had, as my mom would usually be the one to provide me with money. I was pretty clueless on where to start, So my aunt did the heavy work and found me a job babysitting for one of her customers. She works at a salon, and the customer's name was Jeremiah. Jeremiah is a Nigerian man who always goes there to get a cut. She tells me he's extremely nice, and she presumes he's well off because he always tips well. I'm pretty excited, because babysitting for a couple of hours and making good money sounds like music to my 16-year-old self-ears. So about a week before I'm supposed to start babysitting Jeremiah's kids for the summer, I meet up with him. He introduces himself to me and wants me to meet the kids on a short trial basis for about an hour a day from Monday to Friday. He agrees to pay me $30 for the hour, as he was paying me $10 for each child and there were 3 of them. I meet with the kids and they all seem pretty easygoing. There was a 2-year-old, Felicia, a 5-year-old, Jeremiah, he was a junior, and a 7-year-old, Heaven. All in all, it seemed like it was going to be a good summer. But it wasn't. The first few days of the trial went great. I would come see the kids and take them to a park or play a game with them until I had to go home. However, on the Friday of that week, it started to get weird. I came to the house as I usually did and greeted Jeremiah and took the kids to the park, as I had been doing for almost about 4 days now routinely. However, this day was not like the rest. Jeremiah calls me 15 minutes into the day, screaming at me to bring back his children. I was terrified that something had happened, so panicking, I pack up the kids and we go back to the house. Once we're all in the home, he tells the kids to go to their rooms, and this is where the horror begins. He tells me that I'm no longer allowed to take the kids to the park. Confused, I ask why. He explains to me that his ex-wife often goes to the park and watches the kids and that he's afraid for their safety. Well, let me tell you, that's news to me, as when I first met him, he specifically told me that he and his wife had gotten a divorce. Why? Because she had been bringing men back to the home, and he had suspected one of them had been touching Heaven. Those were his exact words. He also told me that his ex had lost her custodial rights and was in prison, so you could see where I was confused. Nonetheless, whatever doubt and confusion I had in my mind, I push it down and swear to him that if I ever did see her around the house, I would call the police, as he had previously told me he had a restraining order out on her. He tells me not to ever call the police if I see her, but to only call him. Again, I push the doubts in my mind to the side and reluctantly agree. The first month of the summer goes well. I spend about 4 hours a day with the kids, and during those 4 hours, those kids are preoccupied with their gaming systems, or riding their dirt bike, or doing whatever they want in their massive house. However, once July rolls around, things get a bit strange. Jeremiah starts coming home from work early on Wednesdays. That's not the strange part. The strange part is that he would come home early from work and expect me to remain at the home until my day was done. He also starts to recruit me to do things with the kids and him, like going clothing shopping, going to the doctor's, going to the supermarket, or even the movies. I was starting to feel more like a nanny than a babysitter. When I would express the idea of going home as I wasn't needed, he would always get upset and guilt me into staying. The kids need you. This is your responsibility. I was annoyed, but I let it go, as I'm only spending 4 hours a day there and getting paid very well. My sister Michelle, on the other hand, would openly tell me how weird she finds Jeremiah, and how she thought he was trying to groom me into being the kid's surrogate parent and his new wife. I laugh off the idea, as nothing even mildly inappropriate has ever happened. That is, until one day. I came to the home as per usual, and Jeremiah leaves to work. About an hour into me being there, I hear a knock on the door. Before I could ask who it is, Heaven sprints to the door and swings it open. To my surprise, it's a woman. I ask her who she is, and she tells me she's the kid's mother. I'm shocked and frightened, as that woman isn't supposed to have any contact with these kids. I tell her Jeremiah is at work and that I'm watching the kids in his absence. She gives me a very cynical look and tells me that I can go home as she's there now. I tell her Jeremiah told me not to let her in, and if she visits that she needs to leave. I half expect her to curse me out, but to my surprise, she says, "Fine," kisses the kids goodbye and leaves. I quickly, in a panic, phone Jeremiah and tell him of the recent occurrence. He doesn't seem upset at all. He doesn't even seem surprised. Instead, he calmly thanks me for alerting him, and as he was ending the call, tells me that I'm a good girl. Again, I'm a bit sketched out, but proceed to continue to watch the kids. While I was there, I started to become curious on the nature of the relationship between the mother and the kids, since they didn't seem to really miss her at all while she was away. Therefore, I do the only logical thing I can do, and proceed to pry answers out of Heaven and Jeremiah Jr. To my utter disbelief, what I find out is shocking. It turns out the reason why the kids barely seem to miss their mother is due to her never being gone in the first place. They tell me their mother comes home every day, right when Wheel of Fortune is coming on. I ask them if she stays or goes to her own home, and they tell me she sometimes spends the night in their dad's room, but when he's mad at her, she leaves. So I ask the next logical question. I ask Heaven why her dad is often angry at her mom, and she tells me it's because Mom isn't a good listener. Right then and there, I get a chill, because up until that point, it seems like I'm putting together a puzzle, but none of the pieces are matching. I start rewinding to certain things Jeremiah would say to me, and certain things he would do that I didn't think much of. For instance, every time I was playing with Felicia when he was around, he would always tell me I'm a good mom. Not that I will be a good mother, no, that I am one. He asked me if I'm dating anyone, which I innocently answered that I'm not. He even asked me if I'm sexually active, which I rightfully declined to answer, although I'm not either. He becomes really touchy with me, always wanting to touch my hair or hug me goodbye. He comments on my appearance a lot, telling me how attractive and in shape I look. He makes me stay later on certain days, even after he's home. I get the feeling those were the days he kicked his ex out. And last but not least, Jeremiah starts to advise me to come in through the garage and not the front door when I come in the morning. Each time I do, I'm greeted by a shirtless Jeremiah who attempts to go in for a lingering hug. I honestly think he wanted something to occur in that garage. He would attempt to keep me there conversing with him in the dark. It was a combination of those things, as well as what the kids tell me, that makes me question the legitimacy of everything he's ever told me. I begin to think that maybe Jeremiah didn't want a babysitter, but a new wife to be the mother of his kids. As time progresses, I found out even worse news. Jeremiah's ex-wife isn't even his ex. They're still married. He apparently abuses her often, and is paranoid that she's having an affair with someone, so he sent her away to Nigeria for a month. I learn all this from the woman in the salon my aunt works at. Not only that, but also that Jeremiah constantly brings women home while the wife is away. She finds out about this because she sometimes pretends to go to work and stays behind to watch for visitors. She's asked him for a divorce, which is why he sent her away. I also learned that he would regularly threaten to kill her if she ever leaves him. By the time all this truth has come out, I'm done. I have about a month and some change left, but I tell Jeremiah I can no longer watch the kids, because I have to attend some basketball camp, which is a lie. He became visibly upset, and literally tells me I have to continue to come back. I tell him I would not be doing so, and that's when he starts to become irate. He calls me a slut, and tells me the only reason I want to leave the kids and him is because I was seeing other men. Mind you, I was 16 at the time, with no obligation to watch over his kids or him. I leave that day crying and don't come back the next day. My mom asks me why I'm no longer working there, and I tell her it was because the job was too stressful. About a week later, I'm up in my room and hear the doorbell ring. I didn't think much of it until I hear Jeremiah's voice. I creep down the living room to see him casually sprawled over one of our couches, as if he lives there. I hear his booming voice directed at my mother, and what I presume to be his authoritative voice. He states, "We need to talk about my girl. She hasn't been to my house in a bit, and the kids are starting to get worried. I don't like that. Where is she?" My mother, picking up on the strangeness of the situation, lies and tells him I've left with a friend, to which he has the audacity to ask whether it's a male or female friend. That's the straw that breaks the camel's back. My mom tells Jeremiah that his questions are invasive and predatory. She then asks him to leave, which, to my surprise, he does. From there on, I don't see or hear of Jeremiah for about a year. He still texts me, but I quickly learn to block his number. After a year, I learned some more information. His wife has gotten full custody of the kids, and they're living in another city about an hour from where we do. I thought that was miraculous, because Jeremiah makes it abundantly clear that those kids and his wife are his. A few months after learning that information, I'm jogging in my neighborhood when I wander by his house. I try to sprint past it, but I'm dead from my run. So instead, I opt to cross the street and stay a good distance from his house, in case he's somewhere nearby. I guess God was mad at me that day, because out of nowhere, Jeremiah pulls into the road and stops his car near me. He rolls down his window and asks how I'd been. I'm scared shitless, but he's pretty civil despite how we left things prior to this. He babbles on about himself and makes some off comments about my body, but what catches my attention is what he says towards the end of our conversation. He tells me his wife tricked him into losing custody of the kids. And this is how it went down. She calls him while he's at work one day and tells him Jeremiah Jr. has been acting up. Being the abusive piece of shit he is, he runs home to show Jeremiah some discipline and respect. Well, his wife records the whole thing. The police are called and a report is filed. I guess that's how she's awarded temporary custody of the kids. However, he assures me that he'll be getting his kids back because they're his, and his wife will soon pay for her transgressions. The whole conversation made me feel uneasy, and I was glad when it ended. I ran home and briefly told my sisters about it, then never think about it again. Until I hear the news, a few weeks before my birthday, from my aunt of all people, that Jeremiah has gotten his kids back. His wife mysteriously falls ill and goes back to Nigeria before dying. I know it sounds crazy, but that's exactly what my aunt told me. Again, I'm frightened after hearing that news and disclosed to my sisters what he told me a few months prior to her death. About a year after, I'm jogging again and pass his house. This time he comes out of his house to wave me down. He asks if I want to say hi to the kids. I tell him no, as they probably won't even remember me. He then asks me something shocking. He asks if I want to say hi to his wife, and calls her to come out. I'm then approached by a very young woman, probably only a few years older than me, with a baby on her arm. She smiles and politely introduces herself. I'm shook. I exchange pleasantries and finish up my jog hurriedly. Once I get home, I tell my sisters what I've just seen. I don't know if Jeremiah did anything to his wife, but I have an eerie feeling in my gut that he's not at all that innocent. So I, 19 and female, was at a house party a couple of days ago. I only really knew a few people there, and it was pretty packed. I hung around with my two friends there for a while, having some drinks. After a while, my friends went into this room that everyone was hotboxing in. I didn't go because I didn't really feel like drinking and being stoned at a party where I barely knew anyone. So I just mingled for a bit, then went on my phone talking to my other friends. I noticed this guy that keeps staring me up and down, and instantly felt my stomach sink. I'm no stranger to people trying to catch my eye to strike a conversation or flirt, but I instantly had a bad feeling about this guy. I looked back down at my phone and sent my location to my friends, just letting them know where I was because things were changing from feeling chill to suddenly sketchy. There were a bunch of cans of soda in the kitchen, so I got up to go grab a Sprite instead of having any more drinks. I brought my own alcohol. I'll never take drinks from strangers. As I'm there, the same guy that kept looking at me comes in and starts trying to get me to take this drink in a red Solo cup. I told him no. He kept trying though, and I was getting annoyed because he kept being super pushy. I started to be pretty blunt. "Look, I don't want your drink or your company," and walked away. I thought that'd be the end of it, and pushed it to the back of my mind as one of my friends came out from the hotbox room, stoned and pretty happy. We hung out some more, and my friend wanted a cigarette, so I went out on the balcony with her. As we're there, she put her cigarettes on the ledge, and as she's talking animatedly, her arm pushed her cigarettes off and they fell down into the yard. I was gonna go downstairs and outside with her to go get them, but she told me she had to grab something from her car anyways and that she'd be right back. I decided to just wait down there for her. I'm on my phone when I hear the door open. I expected it to be her. As I'm about to say, that was quick. I spin around, and I'm face to face with that guy from earlier. He just grabs my face and kisses me. I pushed at his chest and said, "What the fuck, dude? Did you not hear what I said?" He proceeded to say something in Spanish, which I can't speak, but I could pick up a few words he was saying, like puta. I had a friend who was an exchange student, and she taught me all the naughty words. I told him to fuck off, and went to push past him to go back outside. He proceeded to push me up against the wall outside and try to kiss on my neck. That's when I pushed him away as hard as I could. But he then let go of my wrists and grabbed my throat, hard, while maintaining eye contact and smirking the whole time. Just when he used his other hand and tried to grab my ass, my friend came back from getting her cigarettes, poked her head out, and saw what was happening. She tried to intervene, but he pushed her away with his other hand. I heard her say, "What the fuck? Hell no." She grabbed the closest guy to the door from inside and brought him out. The random heroic guy from inside then grabbed the crazy throat grabber, putting him in some type of chokehold, and started screaming at him. He got kicked out. I'm pretty sure someone punched him right in the face, too. Everyone was super apologetic, and said they didn't even know that guy and weren't sure who he even was or how he got there. I wasn't about to call the cops or anything, because I didn't want the party to get busted, but I went to the bathroom and immediately broke down crying. I called my friends. My friends here weren't sober enough to drive, and they came to get me. I have a couple of finger bruises on my neck still, and I hate to think of what would have happened if my friend had been distracted by something and not came inside when she did. At least I know my intuition works great. But let me just say, I'm never going to a party where I barely know anyone anymore. That was scary as hell. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. I have a little bit of an update here for you guys. I've recently started streaming a little bit on Twitch. I don't know if you guys are interested in just hanging out and seeing a bit of gameplay of maybe Monster Hunter or some games like that, maybe a few horror games, but I'll leave a link to my Twitch in the description of the video below. As always, if you guys like the video, please leave a comment or perhaps like or subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you'd like to message me, or you'd like to send in a story for me to read, or you have a suggestion for a story I should read, the links to all of my social media will be in the description of the video below as well. This includes my Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, and now, of course, my Twitch account. Go ahead and send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. But please, guys, be patient, because I do get a lot of messages, so if I don't respond to you right away within like a week or two, just be a little patient. I'll get to it as soon as I can. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the description of the email or message what the name of the story is, what the category of the story is, and how you would like to be credited in the video that the story appears in. If you guys are curious about the music used in this video, Links to the music and the order in which the music appears will always be in the description below the video, so you can go ahead and check that out there. Last but not least, if you guys do enjoy my content, please take a look at my Patreon, and if you feel so inclined, maybe donate like $1 or something. Every little bit helps. It'll never be necessary, but of course, it's always an option if you guys would like to support the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.